Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So we were talking about shaitan. Why seeking refuge from the tempting of shaitan, from temptation from shaitan, and the touch of shaitan, and the evil inspiration from shaitan. To seek refuge with Allah Azza wa Jal against all this. Why is it important? And why is it necessary just when you open the Qur'an Kareem, when you're about to recite the Qur'an Kareem? Why is it so important that a number of ulama have considered it to be wajib and compulsory? Which means that if you miss intention, if you miss A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem at the start of reciting the Qur'an Kareem, that would be negligence. That would constitute to abandoning a duty, and that would constitute to a sin. However, the mainstream view in regards to A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem is that it's not wajib, it is sunnah, which means it's extremely recommended. However, if you missed it, you would not be earning a sin. But it is recommended, don't take it lightly. So why is it that A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem is so important at this time? The point I'm trying to convey, the point I'm trying to make, and the message that I'm trying to convey here, and this is the second day we're talking about the same subject. The message here is that shaitan is a creation of Allah, and he is there trying to lead you astray 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There doesn't pass a moment when shaitan sits idle and he stops functioning and stops doing its duty. Remember, shaitan is a creation of the Almighty Allah. Allah, whenever he creates something, he makes it perfect. You would not see a fault or a flaw in anything that Allah has created. Allah has created the heavens and the earth. Allah has created the universe. Allah has created the moons and the stars and the sun and the seas. And everything that Allah has created functions effectively in a perfect manner all the time. That you would never see a moment when the sun blinks for a second just to take a bit of rest. Since the history has been documented and history is known, there is not a moment recorded when the sun blinked for a moment and it took some rest. It's been perfectly shining for centuries, for millenniums, for millions of years. The sun is doing its duty, and it never grows tired of it. Similarly, shaitan, as it's created by Allah Azza wa Jal as a test for mankind, he's there functioning, performing its duty all the time. As me and you sit here, I'm talking, I'm trying to teach, I'm trying to preach, I'm trying to convey the message of the Qur'an Kareem. You are there listening to it. Shaitan is not sitting idle. He's trying to put whispers in my head. He's trying to put whispers in your head. And without seeking refuge with Allah Azza wa Jal, and without being protected by our Lord, there is no way we can escape from it. Shaitan's ultimate goal is to take human beings to Jahannam with him. That's what shaitan tries his best to. So ultimately, shaitan wants to take an individual to Jahannam. And anything he would tolerate and compromise with, as long as he sees that he's able to lead an individual astray from the right path. Anything else that he gets is a bonus. Any hardship in this dunya, any trouble in this dunya, any pain, any suffering in this worldly existence, that is a bonus for shaitan. His ultimate goal that makes him content is that a human being ultimately ends up in Jahannam in the company of shaitan. That's what shaitan tries to do. And we need to protect ourselves against shaitan. And it is important. There's an awareness of this widespread plague, the virus, coronavirus. Everybody is talking about it. The life on the planet has come to a standstill. It's come to a halt because the fear, the concern is so widespread, and the recognition of the danger is at a level where we happily stopped all our economic activities, even though we live in the heart of in the heart of a capitalist society. The business activities have all been halted, and to a greater extent, the economy has slowed down significantly to an extent where we're happy to make sacrifice of trillions of dollars worth of our economic trade. Yet, we are happy to do that because the ultimate danger is so alarming that this is a small price to pay against it, and we are happy to settle for this. Similarly, shaitan is a creation of Allah. We need to have this awareness that the battle between us and shaitan is an ongoing battle. and it's not an easy one to win. So have a setup in a manner that would take you to a way and that would protect you, that would offer you some protection against shaitan. And that protection may be in the form of wudu. If you're happy to wash your hands 15 times a day to protect yourself from the virus, why aren't you prepared to do your wudu 5 times a day to protect yourself against shaitan? What is wrong with that? Where is my iman and where is our iman? Why do we find it difficult to do wudu where we have no issue or no difficulty washing our hands 15, 20, 25 times a day? So it's the awareness. We need to create this awareness. We need to understand the shaitan, the devil, Iblis is there, who is trying to constantly to push us away from the right path. So the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal, we were talking about, prior to the break, we were talking about how does shaitan try to have a go at an individual. There are moments when individuals are extremely vulnerable. In coronavirus, people who have underlying health conditions, people who are of a certain age bracket, they are particularly vulnerable to the virus. Similarly, there are moments in human conduct, in human behavior, when an individual is prone to the satanic influence, and shaitan gets his way the way he chooses. For instance, the 2 things that we talked about earlier. One was al-amnu min makrillah. When you feel that, oh, I'm fine, nothing will happen to me, shaitan can't do anything to me, because I know so much, I'm such a learned person, shaitan cannot tempt me. No, there's no way. When you get to that stage where you think you know it, you know everything, and you don't need to build any mechanism to protect yourself against shaitan or you protect your family against shaitan, then you are a loser. Because you think that shaitan can't have a go at you, whereas shaitan didn't even spare Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as he stand in worship at the time of tahajjud before the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. Shaitan tried to play with Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at such time of dua and ibadat and tilawat. So there's nothing that I say I can feel secure with if Allah Azza wa Jal does not secure me. If Allah Azza wa Jal does not protect me, then there is no way I can be protected against shaitan. However, I'm interested in everything that guarantees me protection against the devilish interference. Then that is something that I'm very interested in, and I would try and learn about it. So first was al-amnu min makrillah. The second is rage and anger. When you're angry and when you're in rage, stop doing whatever you're doing. Relax, sit down, back off. Don't make any decision when you're angry. Do not do anything when you become when you are in rage. Stop and back off. As soon as you realize that you are getting angrier and you're losing control, just back off. Do not proceed, because you're likely to fall into one of the traps set by shaitan. How many families they end up in a mess because of that mad moment of one of the elders? So try not to do that. Do not let anybody in your family, in your friends, in the circle of your friends, and amongst your companions suffer just because of that moment of madness and craze. Do not let that happen to you. Do not let that happen to your family. So al-ghadab, and that is a moment when people can lose control over themselves. The third situation, when a person becomes particularly vulnerable and prone to the devilish interference and satanic influence, is the moment of shahwa, when you are in greed, when you have a temptation, and when some lustful feelings develop within you, your desire begins to kind of raise its head. So that moment when shahwat ignites, when that lustful feelings they start developing in you, and you feel their presence in you, that is a moment when shaitan finds it easy to get control of yourself. The Prophet, there is numerous ahadith and the instruction from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَىٰ فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Your hawa, that lustful feeling or that kind of base temptation, never follow that, because that will lead you astray from the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas says that whenever you would find the mention of hawa in the Qur'an. ما ذكر الله عز وجل هوا في القرآن إلا ذمه. He says that hawa and this desire is not, you would not see it mentioned in the Qur'an, but in a manner which is condemned by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. So your personal desires, some of it are legitimate, but they are something to be careful with. Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu says, أنتم في زمان يقود الحق الهوى وسيأتي زمان يقود الهوى الحق. Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu had said, and how accurately he predicted what we find ourselves having to put up with. He'd said to his companions at the time of Rasulullah, just at the time of the time when Rasulullah had just passed away, he said to his students that you live at a time, you live through time when the guidance and al-haq and the truth, it controls the desires. So people have desires, but the strength and the might of the truth is such that their desires are submissive to the truth. But then he said, there will come a time when the truth will be suppressed by the desires. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us, and may Allah Azza wa Jal save us from being tempted by our desires to an extent where we lose the sight of the truth. And then there are occasions when shahwat becomes such that people, despite having worshipped Allah Azza wa Jal for years, they slept. And when this happens, they are ruined. In the Qur'an, Allah Ta'ala talks about Bal'am ibn Ba'ur. His story is quite well referenced in the books of Tafsir. In Surah Al-A'raf, Allah Ta'ala talks about an individual who had been given the ilm of the kitab, who had been gifted by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. And Allah Ta'ala talks about a man who was الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا, that was given signs from the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. It is said that Bal'am ibn Ba'ur amongst Banu Israel, he was a man who was known for his devotion to the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. He was a man who, when he lifted his hands in dua, his du'as would always be accepted. And this man was tempted by the enemies of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, or enemies of it won't be Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, but the prophet of the time. So that prophet, the prophet of the time, he was making his efforts against batil, against falsehood, to support the haqq and the truth. And the forces of the falsehood, they couldn't withstand the might of the Nabi and people that were with him. So they wanted some kind of divine intervention. They wanted some kind of divine support against the efforts and the work of the Nabi of the time, the Prophet of the time, who was appointed by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal directly and handpicked by him. So they wanted Allah Azza wa Jal to help them against the Nabi. They had no recourse to it. So they came to Bal'am ibn Ba'ur and they tempted him. They asked him to make dua against the Nabi. And he said, no, I can't. How can you take a stand against a Nabi of Allah Azza wa Jal? Whenever you take a stand against Nabi of Allah Azza wa Jal, you are in the wrong. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was appointed by the Almighty Allah. Anyone who opposes him, regardless of whatever claims that he may have, he is always wrong. Regardless of his ilm, his knowledge, his understanding, his insights into life, his poetic skills, whatever he has, if he takes a stand against the Nabi of the time, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he is in the wrong. And he is doomed to fail. And he will be destroyed, but he will never flourish. Allah Azza wa Jal will never allow him to temporarily, he might enjoy some prestige, he might enjoy some fame, but on a longer run, he will be humiliated. So this individual, Bal'am ibn Ba'ur, he was tempted. Initially, he point blank he refused, but then he was tempted through some bribe, and as a result of that bribery, which came in whichever shape it came, he agreed to make a dua against the Nabi of the time, and that dua he was not even allowed to complete. That enraged the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal, and that invoked the anger of Allah Azza wa Jal to an extent that Bal'am ibn Ba'ur despite his ilm, despite his ibadat, despite his piety, his end was miserable and he was destroyed by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. His shahwat ruined him, his greed ruined him, and his desire to become richer or to gain influence ruined him. And this is something that Allah Azza wa Jal warns us against. That when this hirs and greed and this avarice, when it overpowers you, and when you are under the influence of such feelings, that is the time when you become particularly vulnerable to the attacks from shaitan. So that is when you need special protection. The Prophet ﷺ also said, "Ma dhi'bani ja'i'ani ursila fi ghanamin." Never ursila fi ghanamin bi afsada laha min hisil mar'i 'ala al-ma'i wa sharafi lidini. This hadith is reported by Imam Ahmad rahmatullah in his Musnad, that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Never, you won't find that two hungry wolves, when they are let loose in a herd of sheep, you would not see that they cause more damage to the sheep than the damage that is caused by two things in a man. Which the damage that these two characteristics they cause to his deen, and they cause damage to his deen and damage to his honor. The things that are more damaging even than the two hungry wolves, the damage they do to the herd of sheep. The two things in a human being that cause more damage to him. What are those two things? Hirsul mari al mal wa sharaf. So a man's desire to amass wealth, or man's hunger for fame and honor and status. So when you have these kind of feelings in you, you have greed to be, and you have this uncontrolled desire to be rich and amass wealth, or this desire to get a higher status. Such a desire, such a greed, then starts to make an impact on your deen and an impact on your proximity with Allah. Your bond with Allah Azza wa Jal becomes affected by such feelings, and the effect is more devastating than the damage that is caused by these two hungry wolves to the herd of sheep. So your deen will be ruined. Your ilm will not be able to protect you. Your insights into life will not be able to save you because of the powerful force of such feelings, and which are then further pushed by shaitan at the back as well. So these are things. This is a situation that when the moment of greed, the moment when you feel greedy, the moment when you become thirsty for fame and thirsty for status and authority, when those kind of things become your goals in life, then nothing can rescue you. Nothing can protect you from being trapped by shaitan and falling prey to shaitan, because you become a very easy target for shaitan, and it's very unlikely that shaitan, you will be spared by the satanic temptations. So let never those things happen to you. The greed for and the thirst to amass wealth, or to get to a higher status, or to be famous or become rich. These are kind of things, when they develop within a man, his deen is the price that he'll end up paying, and he'll not be able to protect his deen and his religion and his bond with the Creator. So this desire to become rich, and this hirs is what we're referring to. And also, one of the moments when shaitan tries to find easy to target an individual is a moment when a person acts in a hastily manner. So when you're in a rush, quickly trying to do things, spur of the moment, you get something and you just want to do it straight away, and you do not have this thoughtful approach to life. When you do not have this habit of stopping and reflecting, and you make your decisions in a hastily manner, that's when shaitan finds it easy to interfere with you. He'll try and he'll try and entrap you, and you'll do things that you will later regret. The Prophet ﷺ said, hastiness is from shaitan. And the Prophet ﷺ would not make decisions in a hastily manner. So take it easy. Do not rush in life. Because when you are acting in a hastily manner, that is when shaitan finds it easy to get control over you. And also, it is one of the one of the moments when shaitan, when you particularly become vulnerable, is the moment when you are in fear, when you are scared, when you do not feel secure. This insecurity, feeling insecure, is something when even very, very intelligent people do stupid things. How many women have ruined their perfect marriages just because they felt insecure? How many men have ruined their families just because they did not trust their other halves? So not trusting people around you and feeling insecure is something that will ultimately ruin you. Yes, I did say earlier that do not feel so confident against shaitan. But the remedy to that is to have tawakkul in Allah. Have faith in Allah Azza wa Jal. And I will be talking later, maybe in our next dars, but I want to talk about how to protect yourself. There are a few things which if you develop within you, you will never be able you will never become a prey to shaitan. You will protect yourself and you will be secure against the temptation of shaitan, and we'll look at that later. But at this moment in time, inshallah, in detail, and you will feel that that is something which gives a lot of assurance. But at this moment in time, we're talking about shaitan. He makes people scared. As Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned earlier as well, الشَّيْطَانُ يَعِدُكُمُ الْفَقْرَ وَيَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالْفَحْشَاءِ. I mentioned earlier that the Prophet ﷺ said that shaitan touches a human being just like an angel touches a human being. And when shaitan touches a human being, the individual feels insecure. The individual feels tempted to do evil things. The individual wants to commit a sin. So the touching of shaitan leads to shameful acts. And the touching of a malak, of an angel, leads to some security, feeling this sense of contentment. And there the Prophet ﷺ read this ayat as well, that shaitan scares you and promises you in regards to, and he makes you, يَعِدُكُمُ الْفَقْرَ, he scares you against poverty, and he wants you to commit acts of shamefulness. This fear of faqr, the fear of poverty, that stops you from doing charity and acting in a charitable manner. And this sense of insecurity will make you do things which you would otherwise never even think about doing. And that insecurity comes from shaitan. And if this happens to you, resort to putting your trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. If someone says the last ayat of Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi tawakkaltu wa huwa rabbul arshil azim, if someone says this in the morning and in the evenings and renews his faith in Allah Azza wa Jal, then Allah Azza wa Jal will take responsibility of his affairs, and whatever he would intend to do, Allah Azza wa Jal will allow it to happen for him. The concluding ayat of Surah At-Tawbah, Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu, Allah is sufficient for me, there is no God except Him, alayhi tawakkaltu, upon Him I put my trust and my faith, and He is Lord of the great throne, wa huwa rabbul arshil azim. If you go and check in Surah At-Tawbah, the closing ayat of it, if you recite this ayat and make it a routine of yours, whenever you feel insecure, Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi tawakkaltu wa rabbul arshil azim, say it in the morning, say it in the evenings, after your prayers, and Allah Azza wa Jal will take responsibility of your task, and your task will be completed, and you will get divine support and help. But if you feel insecure, try not to panic. Regardless of situation that you're in, try and keep control over your life and be considerate and have a thoughtful approach to life, because just by doing so, you will be acting strong against shaitan, and you will not allow shaitan to have an upper hand upon you. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect me and you and everyone else, all our friends and family, from the temptation of shaitan. Inshallah, in our next dars, we'll talk about how to protect ourselves against shaitan. That will be the next dars about. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.